I'm gonna go over my thoughts on the choices the players from CtG's latest 2v2 Mutation Deconstruction Challenge made each round. If you want more details about the rules of this competition, check out the original video in the description. If you haven't watched it yet, you should do that first to avoid any spoilers. I'm not gonna go over their individual choices nor in-game stuff like micro or macro during the game. Just gonna talk about the mutator veto choices, their commanders, and the map choices. I'm not going to take their commander pool nor their knowledge or experience with prestiges into consideration. I'm just going to talk about like the best prestiges for the respective commanders. I haven't played this format seriously yet, but I do have some strategies with regards to selections. After seeing the mutators, you want to have a map and a set of mutators in mind or commanders that you can use to beat the set of mutators. Then slowly get rid of strong commanders that your opponents might win with and mutators that are unfavorable for your plan. Of course, your opponents might throw a wrench into your plan, so early on, just focus on eliminating mutators that you absolutely hate. Since you eliminate a mutator before you play a round, you want to eliminate the last unfavorable mutator before you play. You want to leave the crappiest ones for your opponents so that they will use their mutator veto on them. Same goes for maps. In general, you want to eliminate the maps that aren't favorable for your plan or ones that don't synergize well with your mutator set. For example, if you want to win using a Scythe of Amon cheese, you want to eliminate environmental mutators like Blizzard. If you don't want to plan all that stuff, then just eliminate the second worst mutator from the list. While your opponents are playing, use that time to plan the next round. As for the mutators, this is one of the worst mutator sets that I've ever seen. So let's go over each one. First one, gift exchange. Randomness is not good. The best positive gifts are Avengered hero units and everything is free. The worst negative gifts are hybrid and killbots. Sometimes a random mutator like Just Die or Shrinkwave in the middle of fight can also ruin things. There are also extra enemies to kill. Despite the potential benefits of this mutator, it isn't something you want to have around. However, there are far worse ones, so this has mid-priority for elimination. Heroes from the Storm. This is simply a difficult mutator. There are specific ways to deal with each hero, and if you don't know them, you're in trouble. Get rid of this if you can't handle the onslaught, but there are far worse ones. Mid-priority for elimination. Boombots. In a duel with comms, this isn't that bad. However, it's annoying to have to input numbers while so much other stuff is going on. Mid to high priority. We move unseen. Not too bad on its own, but it synergizes extremely well with the other mutators on this list. Heroes from the Storm, Propagators, Boombots, aggressive deployment waves, candy enemies, gift exchange enemies, all of them will be invisible. This is a high priority for elimination. Props. Like Heroes from the Storm, if you know how to get rid of them, they aren't so bad. So mid to low priority. Life Leech. Depending on the enemy comp, it will be easy or difficult. If the enemy can deal tons of damage like Classic Mech or Vanguard of Ire, then it will be tough. Otherwise, it's fine. Low priority. Aggressive deployment. It's tough for solos, but it's not tough for duels. The difficulty depends on each comp. So it depends on what enemy you get. So if you get like Air Terran, battle cruisers will rain from the sky. But if you get something like classic infantry, then it's just a bunch of Marines. Low priority. Polarity. As much as I hate this, it's fair game for duels. Still, having polarity around means both commanders must have mobility and or map presence. Since commanders will be eliminated as the rounds go on, you might not always have a commander that can move around easily. High priority. Trick or treat. You gotta spend some minerals or else enemies come. After 10 minutes, this mutator can just be ignored because only tier 1 to 1.5 units will be spawned. Make sure you have candy from 8 to 10 minutes as capital ships and hybrid can spawn if you don't. After 10 minutes, make like 5 to 10 spine crawlers, bunkers, or whatever around them and keep them repaired. Low priority. Lowest, in fact. Chaos Studios. This mutator shouldn't even be here because it's actually 3 mutators. You can't even see more than 10 mutators, so you might not know or you might forget what mutators are active. If it were just one random mutator cycling, that would be okay because it's 1 for 1. However, it must be gone before any real attempts can be made because the randomness ruins plans that players might have during the game. You don't want to rely on not getting bad luck during the run. And it also seems kind of unfair that you can veto 3 mutators by vetoing 1. It's kind of weird. So yeah, definitely highest priority for elimination. So synergies. In this mutator set, there are mutator synergies that I'll go over. As mentioned earlier, We Move Unseen synergizes extremely well with all of these, so that's why this is a high priority for elimination. Heroes from the Storm and Life Leech means that it'll be harder to kill the heroes because they'll gain life back with each attack, and they do a lot of damage. Polarity and props. Operation Cooperation was already annoying enough. It's not going to be fun with all the other stuff going on. Polarity and aggressive deployment means that both players must be close together to fight off the waves. Boombots and propagators. Many commanders need to kite in order to fight props. However, it'll be hard to kite if you also have to type in numbers to deal with a boombot. Now let's go over each round. In round 1, Team 1 wants to eliminate 2 commanders and a map. They knew that it's pretty much going to be impossible, so they chose Nova, Zeratul on Void Thrashing. This, I think, is a fine choice because round 1 is basically impossible with these mutators. Nova and Zeratul are strong commanders that you don't want your opponents to use, and Void Thrashing is a short and easy map, so getting rid of it is pretty clever. If I were to give it an honest attempt, I would choose Stetman P2 and Phoenix P2. Both commanders have good mobility for aggressive deployment, and they're super strong versus Heroes from the Storm. Super Gary is also a detector, which is good against We Move Unseen. In round 2, Team 2 chose to eliminate Propagators, and they chose Manx and Scythe of Amon. I don't know if they were going for, they're gonna give it a serious attempt, but Chaos Studios has to go before they can actually try to beat it, because the randomness is just gonna ruin their plans. Right now, they're just getting rid of commanders and mutators, so that's fine. Scythe of Amon is a good map choice because it's really easy to cheese. The players claim to not know any cheeses, but they might be bluffing. Also, Heroes from the Storm doesn't work on Scythe of Amon, so if they had known this and the other team didn't, they should have kept this map for later as a free mutator veto. As the expert, CtG should not have allowed this map to be in the pool, knowing that Heroes from the Storm was one of the mutators. He wouldn't have needed to explain why, and if someone asks, then he can explain. Likewise, if Minor Evacuation was here, it should also be changed to something else, because Heroes from the Storm doesn't work there either. As for commanders, Team 2 shouldn't have chosen Han Horner unless their commander pool isn't very deep and they want to save some of the stronger ones for themselves later, or if they think someone on the other team is really good with Han Horner. Propagators aren't actually that hard to deal with, so choosing that here was odd. To have even a chance, Polarity and Chaos Studios both have to go before anyone can give it a real attempt. Polarity is just really bad when there are all these other mutators that produce additional enemies. We Move Unseen is also surprisingly difficult, and it should have been on the chopping block. Team 2 saw the synergy between We Move Unseen and Boombots, even though it was really short. So they probably know that they have to get rid of We Move Unseen and or Boombots before any real attempts. If I were to actually try this, I would use Stetman Phoenix again, still the same reasons as round 1. Round 3, Team 1 chose to eliminate Boombots, and they chose Tychus Carax on Temple of the Past. From round 3, the teams can actually make real attempts, but as I mentioned earlier, real attempts won't go well unless Chaos Studios is gone. Judging from their pre-game chat, they were gonna make an honest attempt, so they chose 2 strong commanders. Tychus, though, is not that good versus Heroes from the Storm, especially invisible ones. Temple of the Past is also a more difficult map since 4 to 6 heroes come at a time on top of the 6/6 aggressive deployment waves. Carax is good versus most of the stuff here, but he's just meh versus heroes unless you use P1. P1, however, is very good on Temple of the Past. In this situation, for the content, I would quote-unquote try my best, but I wouldn't use any strong commanders that I might need later. I would have also gotten rid of Chaos Studios or Polarity, but Boombots was a reasonable choice. If I were to go for a real attempt in this situation, I probably would have gotten rid of Polarity because you can clear all the buildings on Temple of the Past, thus eliminating Boombots. I wouldn't actually give it a real attempt yet with this set of mutators, but if I were to do so, again, I would use Stetman and Phoenix. For round 4, Team 2 eliminated Chaos Studios and they chose Stukov, Zagara, and Rifts to Korhal. Finally, Chaos Studios is gone. Rift's Decor Hall is a good map because aside from the 2-minute wave, it's really easy. However, both of these commanders don't have great detection early on, they just have Overseers. And if the enemy has air-to-air units like Phoenixes or Vikings, the Overseers will be taken out quickly. Zagara is fine versus Heroes from the Storm because her Lings have evasion and she can use Frenzy if it's not P3. But Stukov is not that good. He needs tons of bunkers or lots of queens, a unit that people often forget about. This wouldn't be an issue if Polarity was gone, but it's still here. Zagara can also get to gift locations easily with P3, but because of Polarity, it doesn't matter. She can't kill half of the units. Zagara can also deal with the early wave, but Stukov has to wait a bit. I would have gotten rid of Polarity here, and I would have used Stetman or Phoenix alongside Zagara because they are the best commanders versus Heroes from the Storm. In round 5, Team 1 eliminated Polarity and they chose to use Alarak Dehaka on Dead of Night. At this point, both teams should be making honest attempts. Polarity is gone, so that's good. I would have chosen the same. However, these two commanders are not good on Dead of Night. They are also not very good against Heroes from the Storm. If I were to use these two commanders, I would have chosen Lock and Load because the second Heroes wave doesn't come until 11 minutes. By then, most of the map can be cleared, and they would have had enough time to power up and probably fight off those heroes as well. If I were to play on Dead of Night, I would have chosen Stetman and Swan or Abathur. Stetman for detection and to hold off the heroes, Swan or Abathur for defense. Trick or Treat also gives Abathur extra biomass. Brutalists can also deep tunnel to gifts, although fighting the invisible enemies at night might be a bit challenging. 3 Brutalists can, however, deep tunnel to the gift, drop a few nests, use mend, walk away while getting hit, then deep tunnel back home. The biomass from killing the enemies with toxic nests will prevent capture. In round 6, Team 2 eliminated Heroes from the Storm and they chose Stetman Vorazun on Oblivion Express. Getting rid of heroes was a reasonable choice. Stetman and Vorazun was also a good choice. Stetman is just good all around, and Vorazun has good mobility and crowd control. Oblivion Express is an okay map. Time Stop can get rid of many of the escort waves if you know the correct timings. You can check out my guide if you don't. Lurkers, with their focus strike algorithm, can also melt trains, and even without lurkers, Stetman can just be everywhere, and most gifts are in reachable locations. So overall, their choices were pretty good. For OE, I would have chosen these two commanders or Phoenix instead of Vorazun for train damage. If I had to choose these two commanders, I would have chosen Lock and Load, although Oblivion Express is fine. Both players picked no prestige. It's possible that they didn't because they weren't familiar with MM maps. If that's the case, this round definitely should have been restarted, especially if it was before the 3-minute mark. I remember Styx Spender didn't pick the right prestige once and he didn't get to try again. That's a bit more understandable as Styx knows MM maps and that can be considered his fault. However, Zergirl and Zombie Grub can't be faulted for not knowing how to choose prestiges or forgetting to do so because they don't play on MM maps all the time. In both cases, the game should have been restarted if they had noticed this before the first attack wave. In round 7, Team 1 eliminated We Move and Scene and they chose Abathur and Artanis on Void Launch. The most dangerous mutator of the ones left is finally gone. Void Launch is an interesting choice because it means the Overcharged Shuttle's gift actually does something. However, it also means that the gifts will be in reachable locations, at least for, I think, most of them, pretty much all of them. Abathur is a great choice because his Deep Tunnel and Toxic Nests will be able to get to the gifts and he can kill the enemies there. He can also feed killbots if they show up. He also gets free biomass from the Candy Bowl. Put 200 biomass swarm hosts there after 10 minutes and they'll just kill everything that spawns and your units can get free biomass. Artanis is fine. P3 would have been better than P0 to help out with attack waves and stuff with the Archon dudes, but P0 is fine. Since it's Void Launch, I would have chosen Swan and just mass turrets at each conduit. Overall, great games after round 4. Congratulations to Uppatry and Jay Barino on their victory. I hope we can see more of them versus some of the past competitors or new challengers. Now for my thoughts on the format. If both teams agree, the first 2 rounds should just be commander and map vetoes. This reduces the amount of time wasted because of non-games. Does anyone really want to spend time playing or watching people load into a game just to have it end before 5 minutes because it's nearly impossible. As for mutators, Chaos Studios shouldn't even be here because it's 3 mutators, and you can't see more than 10 mutators on a screen, so you might not know which mutators are active. For players who aren't very experienced in co-op, this can be extremely confusing, so this mutator shouldn't just not be here. Boombots, microtransactions, and slim pickings shouldn't be possible mutators in this challenge. CtG said that these are gonna stay because they're part of the mutator pool. However, he banned Vertigo because it's not good for viewer experience. These 3 mutators are also not good for viewer experience in a different way. An RTS game is not meant to be played with hindered economies or inputting random numbers mid-game. For microtransactions, do viewers really want to watch people do less because the players don't want to waste resources? Not to mention the clutter that appears on the screen from all those -2/-2 every time someone moves. For slim pickings, do viewers really want to see players not focusing on their army because they have to walk around picking up resources? These mutators need to be gone before any real attempts. The 2 econ mutators are also soft locks on army commanders. Will players really choose Raynor if it costs so much to move or if it takes forever to get a decent-sized army? This is on top of completely changing the way a commander is played. Void Rifts force you to adjust your build order, but you can still play the game. Missile Command forces you to build defenses against the missiles, but you can still play the game. The econ mutators, however, completely change how a player controls the commander and the units. It's kind of like forcing a Zerg player, a Zerg main, to play Protoss. They can probably still do it, but their gameplay will be below their usual level, and it won't be as good to watch. Ultimately, whether these mutators stay or not is CtG's choice though. Leave your comments below on your thoughts. I just think that there's a way to make this a better experience for both the players and the viewers. Everything else is fine as is. There are other things that can be done to improve mutator selection, but that would make things more complicated and we don't really need more of that. Anyway, that's it for now. Let me know in the comments if you like this sort of analysis. Also, let me know your thoughts on the analyses themselves as well as your opinions on this challenge.